I've been seeing a lot of reports about how the MCU is over and the buzz is gone and it will never be where it once was. And today I want to talk about these reports, why people are saying this and why they're so f***ing wrong.
It's like the news, but for nerds.
Today's shout out goes to Stivil Demons. Indeed, the Egyptian name for Apocalypse was In Saba Nur. Make sure you stay to the end of this video where we will ask another nerd car question. What's up, everybody? Happy Friday to you. You made it through another work week. Congratulations. I am Josh. Welcome back to the show. Now, I'm going to be completely real with you guys. I've been seeing a lot of these different reports and just people out there online saying this kind of a thing, espousing this rhetoric that the MCU is over, that it's all downhill from here. But it was actually the John Campea show yesterday that broke me. And no disrespect meant towards John Campea or anybody over there at the show. I actually really respect John Campea. It's one of the reasons I got into this game. But I mean, bruh. So I want to talk about what John talked about yesterday, why I think he's wrong, and then I want to talk about what some other people are saying out there and why I think they're wrong as well. A lot of wrong going around. Just handing it out. Just here you go. You were wrong. You're wrong too. Hey, you in the comment section, you're probably wrong as well. So there were two basic things that John talked about when talking about why he does think that the MCU buzz is not happening and that the MCU will never be where it was once at with, the Infinity Saga. The first point that John brings up is talking about how the actors, the primary Avengers, are now gone, and we will have sort of this new cast of characters. And he kind of made the point that this is like the Saved by the Bell reboot. Kind of saying like you'll look around and be like, who are all these people? Where's Tony Stark? Now that's actually the more fair point that he made, and I will come back to this in just a second. But the second point that he made was talking about how the Phase 4 announcement did not pop or have the buzz that the Phase 3 announcement had. It's just not really comparable. But John, of course it didn't. The Phase 3 announcement was leading up to Infinity War and Endgame, leading up to the culmination of the first 10 years of the cinematic universe. The Phase 4 announcement, of course, because of these movies and shows that were announced, are number one, not nearly as cool, but also not pointing to Infinity War and Endgame. Of course it's not popping off like that announcement. In fact, everyone, I actually believe that John and many others out there are actually looking at this from the wrong angle. Here's the thing. When I objectively sit back and look at the different films that were announced for the Phase 4 slate at Comic-Con, I think of this lineup as pretty weak. I mean, let's go through it. Black Widow. This feels like a movie that's out of time. This movie should have come out in the first 3 phases of the MCU. It probably should come out right after Captain America Civil War. So this movie, kind of weird placement. Also, a movie about a character that just died. There's just a lot. The movie feels like it's out of time. The Eternals movie. Nobody knows what this is. Nobody knows what this movie's going to be like. The Kit Harington announcement happened after Comic-Con, which clearly shows that they're still shuffling things around, even though they have a lot of the cast out there, and they're apparently just filming today. Like, here's some crazy shots of Angelina Jolie in costume for the film. So here's your first look at that. You're welcome. But nobody knows what the Eternals are. Like, how can you get pumped up for something that you don't know what it is? Shang-Chi, again, I think that your average person out there is like, who is that? So yeah, like a weaker sort of buzz creating title. Then you get Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. The buzz was pretty high on that. It trended more than most of the other things I just mentioned, but still, it's a Doctor Strange movie. I'm totally excited for it. Multiverse of Madness opens up a lot of possibilities, but until we know more, I don't know how much buzz you can create there. And then we get to Thor 4, which was the thing that trended the most from San Diego Comic-Con. It created an enormous amount of buzz, and it was still something being sort of shuffled around. Taika had literally just been signed. That was announced and broke by the trades a couple of days beforehand. And despite what people were reporting, Taika did not have a script at that point. He's working on that story right now. So yeah, this is kind of a weaker lineup. So I think the real story here is how much buzz was created from a lackluster lineup at San Diego Comic-Con. This thing popped. This was huge. This took over Comic-Con. It was wildly, crazily reported on. It was huge. And while I agree that it did not have the lasting buzz that the Phase 3 announcement had, it shouldn't. I mean, it just plainly makes sense that it does not. This feels sort of like a filler arc in an anime, and although there's some really cool stuff here, I'm sure that these movies will do great, it isn't even their big guns. So to compare the announcement of Phase 4 to the announcement of Phase 3 is like, dude, bruh. And to add to this, I don't even think we've seen all of Phase 4. I literally don't. You'll notice I've mentioned a couple of different times here now that there's obvious shuffling going around. I think it's a freaking miracle that given where they're at in development right now and sort of pooling a bunch of different things together, that Feige was able to announce as many things as he did. They have such a confidence over there at Marvel Studios in their ability to make these things that even though they don't have it all quite figured out, they literally dropped, like, what was it, 11 different properties, a bunch of stuff on Disney Plus and these movies. This is absolute craziness. So I think the real story here is how they were still able to create all of this buzz with an announcement that was incomplete and kind of lackluster. Okay, so now let's talk about John's point, talking about how the mainstay Avengers are no longer over there and the fact that people will be looking around like, you know, who are these new cast members? Now, as I said, this is the more fair point that I think he brings up. There's something to this, but let's really dig in here. The only Avengers that died in Avengers Endgame that will not be coming back are Black Widow, Captain America, and Iron Man. Now you can make an argument, and it's a pretty fair argument, that these are some of the biggest personalities within the MCU, particularly when it comes to Cap and Iron Man. I agree with you there, and I do think that the addition of losing Spider-Man totally sucks and does hurt what Marvel was going to do moving forward. I really think they were going to leverage Peter Parker's relationship with Tony pretty heavily moving forward. I mean, if Far From Home's any indication, like, yeah, that was going to be their plan. But I think you also have to be fair and say this is a Marvel Cinematic Universe, that there were many characters in all of these different films. These were not just the Captain America, Iron Man movies. There were so many other characters connected and a lot of other characters that were newer on the scene that are incredibly popular. Not to mention that every single character that was in Endgame, particularly all the people that show up to the funeral for Tony Stark at the end of that movie, they all have a connection to Tony Stark. And through that connection, a connection to the Avengers and a connection to Captain America. This is something that's going to impact and hang over the heads of everybody in the MCU moving forward for probably a while. And so even on that basis alone, like, I get sort of bothered by this idea that, like, oh, we're gonna look around and be like, who are all these people? Like, bruh. 22 movies. It's 22 movies. There's a lot of people that's been in these movies. That's all I'm saying. And beyond even that, the thing that John neglected to mention was the fact that we are now going to be getting the Fox properties. So we're going to be getting the X-Men and we're going to be getting the Fantastic Four. Now, here is where I have to slightly sort of agree with the point that he's making, but also provide you the way in which I think Marvel Studios is going to curb this problem, and actually there will be no problem. We've been talking a lot on the show this week about the rumors that Doctor Doom and Galactus will be playing sort of a dual Thanos-like role for the next 6 years of the MCU, that the plan is by Marvel Studios, and this is all sort of rumor and leaked information, but the plan is to have sort of 2 Thanos-level villains, one being the villain for the Earthbound stories that they will tell over the next 5 to 6 years, and the other being a villain that will sort of tie together everything going on in the cosmic side of the MCU over the next 6 years. And the reasons I find the new rumors so interesting, the fact that Doctor Doom will be the Earthbound villain and Galactus will be the Spacebound villain, is that it actually is very different than when we initially heard these reports. When these reports initially started coming out, people were talking about how Norman Osborn was going to be the hero, or rather the villain, that tied everything together on the Earthbound side, and that Michael Korvac was going to be the villain in space that ties everything together. I've been speculating that the reason Marvel changed this, if they did change it, was to lean in to the comic book popularity of characters like Galactus and Doctor Doom. I think Disney and Marvel is aware that they are losing some heavy hitters, but that they are also now gaining some of the most iconic comic book characters ever back into their arsenal. A lot of people don't realize this, but the reason that we have so many obscure characters in the first few phases of the MCU is because Marvel had sold off the licenses to its most popular and valuable characters in the 90s in order to make the most money. And so when they were formulating the MCU, buying back some of these licenses, they got certain ones because other studios didn't value them, aka they were not that popular of comic book characters. But the times they are a-changin'. And now Marvel not only needs to lean in to having more popular Marvel characters, but they have access to some of the most popular, and we know this because, again, they sold off these licenses. Are you guys following me here? I'm starting to get pissed off. Sorry. Okay, so yes, they are now having access to these very, very popular characters. So the thing is, even if that were to be a problem, not gonna be a problem for long. In a couple years from now, we're gonna start setting up some of the most popular comic book characters. It's gonna be happening at Marvel. And the best indicator of future behavior is past behavior. And at this point, if you can't trust Kevin Feige and everybody going over at Marvel Studios to not only deliver smash, bang out amazing entertainment, but also a completely mind-blowing way in which it's all interwoven, and take some of these amazing characters and give us the best versions that we've ever had, and a version that can play with all the other toys in this sweet sandbox, then I don't know what to do for you. Now let's talk about some of the other concerns I've seen out there. The most notable concern, and we've talked about this before on the channel, is this idea that now Marvel will go this route of wokeness. And I think the real concern here, just to give you the TLDR of like why people are even worried about this, it is because they think that they will put the social messaging of these new movies and the representation that they're trying to do above the integrity of the films and the organic way that the characters are developed. Like, that's really what it comes down to. Like honestly, like, you know, this thing gets dragged into like this weird online culture war, and you know, there's all kinds of dogs barking on both sides of that thing. But the reality is, the only reason that things like the 2016 Ghostbusters movie don't work is not because of the social messaging. It is because that social messaging is not backed up by an incredible product that looks to appeal to a wide audience of fans. So wrap your head around that. Like, it can be done. Representation and even going the route of wokeness can be done tastefully, and it can be done in a way that still satisfies all of the fans. In fact, that's the way it should be done. You shouldn't be so heavy-handed with your messaging. If you're truly trying to get that message to reach people that you really think need to hear that message, then you don't hammer them over the head with it. You make it relatable in an awesome story that gets people totally lost, and the escapism itself is what should be driving that experience, and then maybe they learn something along the way. And again, if you don't trust Marvel, what? But that's it, guys. That's why these people are talking about how the MCU is on a decline and it'll never reach the heights that it had before. Of course, I'm just some dude on the internet. I could be completely wrong here. I am very interested in what all of you think about this. Please let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And also, yeah, totally, again, no shade meant at John specifically. Like, he just happened to be the person that made the video that kind of broke me when it came to this thing. Nothing against John at all. Now let's check the nerd card before we get out of here. I want to know which famous mutant from the comics has an unbelievable crush on Susan Storm. This dude is obsessed with Susan Storm. Who is the mutant that I'm talking about? Answer that question in the comment section below. As I always say, I hope you're having an awesome and a nerdy day, and I'll see you in the next video.